So, for those of you who were here earlier, you already know this, but my name is Mike Bernstein. I'm also known online as Final Draft, the director of Everfree Radio, now known as Everfree Network. And it is my distinct pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Peter New.
Hello. How's it going, everybody? Cool. Is everybody here from Florida, or we have people from elsewhere? Who's from elsewhere? Everybody's from Florida. This is going to be an awesome conversation. So, what do you want to talk about? I play Big Macintosh on My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic. Thank you. I play Sunil the Mongoose on Littlest Pet Shop, which some of you may have seen as well. Thank you. One of you? Okay.
Give it time.
Yeah, give it time. It's only 12 episodes in. People have to give that show a chance. You have to tune in next week for Lights, Camera, Mongoose. That's an episode that features me quite heavily. I think that's next week's, unless I'm wrong. Do you think it was today's? Yeah, I think it's next week's. So, yeah, Mike has something to talk about.
So, okay, you know how fans of My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic are called bronies? Somebody, and I forget who it was, came up with the greatest potential name for the similar demographic fandom of Pet Shop, which is Pet Shop Boys. I love it. Anybody who was born in the 80s or earlier knows what I'm talking about. So, Mike, I have a quick question for you, Peter.
Yeah.
Would you have a different name for this potential fan base that might, who knows, show up?
No, that's it. As far as I'm concerned, I think that's the funniest. I've heard, petters and pet shoppers and shoppers, and I don't know. So, Pet Shop Boys is the funniest, and the Pet Shop Girls too. I think is fun. So, yeah. It lends itself very easily to the wrong sorts of things. So, we'll try to steer clear of that. So basically, I just want to, have a chat with you guys. So there's a microphone here. Come on up and ask a question, and then we'll talk. Hello. We met earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my question is, who's your favorite character you've ever played and why?
Who that I've ever played and why?
Yeah.
Probably Mary Frances the pig on Littlest Pet Shop. It was only in one episode, but it was a gag I really enjoyed where this pretty little pig comes in. He speaks like this. So, that was just entertaining as all get out to do that.
Did you practice that a lot?
No, that comes naturally to me. Other than that, I adore Big Macintosh. I adore playing that character.
What was your reaction when you found out that instead of the standard demographic that expected for ponies, like 8, 10-year-old girls, you find, say, 23 to 30-year-old guys enjoying it?
Well,
what was your reaction to it?
Okay, I will take you through it. I think at first one raises an eyebrow, right? One says, "You what? That's weird," and you think there's something wrong about it or something strange about it, right?
Like denial, anger.
Yeah, right, exactly. But brief exploration of it, I started coming to these conventions. I did, started looking at bronies online, and it became really clear to me that it was a very genuine affection for the show. I think the assumption is that there's an irony in it, right? The assumption is that you like Fluttershy, but it's like, yeah, Fluttershy, haha. But it's like I really love how genuine the affection for the show is, and that is really inspiring. And so to turn that corner from to be taught that you don't have to always approach something with that sense of cynicism. You can actually approach things with honesty and this genuine quality is something I've learned from this community, which I appreciate. I sort of rambled, but is that the answer?
Hi.
Hi.
What is your favorite part about playing the character Big Macintosh on My Little Pony? And could you do some lines in his voice?
Yup. I can. My favorite, ultimately my favorite thing is the yup, is to say yup, because it's surprising how many different ways you can say it. You know, they bring me into the session every single time. Every single time I have a line, I show up and I say yup, yup. You know, you sort of do 3 or 4 in a row, depending on the context. And so far, it hasn't failed to entertain me. I get a kick out of it every single time I show up to the studio.
And right here, I would like to give one for you on it.
All right.
Yep. As well as,
Fantastic.
as well as I'd like to ask, do you find any way that you can relate to the character that you play in the show of Big Macintosh?
Yes, always. I like Big Mac's. I think he's a very wise character. I've heard some people say that they think he's kind of a dope, but I don't think so. I think he's very bright in his way. I think it's, you know, country wisdom or something. But I think that he's able to sum up an opinion and a position with a word, and cause the other characters to reflect on themselves and on what they're doing. And I think there's a wisdom in that. And I think the way I associate with that is that I wish I was a lot more like that, because I talk a lot.
like in Ponyville Confidential, when
Yeah.
he scolded the Cutie Mark Crusaders.
Hmm. That's one of my very favorite pieces of writing in the whole show, when they have that switch up when Applejack just says, yep, nope, and Big Mac tears a strip off. It's one of my very favorite pieces of writing. I think it's very bright, and I was delighted to get that script.
Almost sounds like you're detailing a towel.
I know. Sorry, hi.
Yeah, the towel of Big Mac, yeah. Hi.
I know that there's been a few episodes where Big Mac has been in. Out of all of them, which one is your favorite?
Oh, probably Hearts and Hooves Day, really.
I knew it. That's my favorite one.
Yeah, I think my favorite moment is probably the one we were just talking about with the switch up with Applejack. But I think as an episode, Hearts and Hooves Day, because it was just such a kick. It was so fun to do it. Was it Nicole's favorite? Is that what she said as well? Yeah, it was fun. We laughed through that session, you know, just to have to holler "Schmoopy-doo" at each other, you know, just. You get to do these ridiculous things in my line of work, and that was one of the best. So, thank you. Hi.
Hey, how's it going?
No, I'm really good. How are you?
I'm good. With Big Mac being such a quiet character in general, do you ever have thoughts or wishes that, like, for an episode even, that, like, his personality gets swapped and he just becomes a chatterbox just for an episode?
I think that would be a kick. Yeah. I mean, I feel really confident in the writing team of the show. So anything that they throw at me, I always feel like this is going to be good. I'm going to be happy with it. So if they threw that episode down the pipe at me, I think that would be a delight. Yeah, it'd be great fun.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hi again.
Hello again. How do you get picked to actually do these roles? Like, do they blindfold you, take you to the studio? Oh, you do an audition.
It feels like that, actually, sometimes. The audition for Big Mac was something that we call it the walk of shame audition, because sometimes even only 2 of you show up, and it's 10 minutes before the session begins, and they bring you into the studio one at a time, and they hear your voice, and you know, someone is often on the other end of the phone listening, and you know, probably Lauren Faust was on the phone when I was in there, and then the 2 of you leave the studio, and they discuss and pick one, and one of you gets to stay and work, and one of you has to do the walk of shame.
And what if you have to do an out-of-state role, like if you were to go to an audition and the role takes place somewhere else?
Well, we can still record it in Vancouver. Yeah, they could just draw it somewhere else.
This is why I hate being so tall. Hey, hello, Peter. How's it going?
Hello, I'm good. How you doing?
This one's kind of more like a background sort of character.
Yeah, all right.
Can you talk more? Can you talk about how you kind of got into acting, like your technical skills, where you learned that, and kind of like your overall background?
Okay.
in acting?
Yeah. I knew pretty early. I knew when I was in high school that I wanted to be an actor. And then I tried to do post-secondary acting training. I auditioned for University of British Columbia's program, and I got into that program, but my academic scores weren't high enough to get in. So I tried for a year to fix that, and eventually got fed up and started a comedy troupe, which was probably rash, and certainly didn't get me anywhere directly. But for a few years, I performed live in front of audiences almost every week, and I think that really honed my craft in terms of, you know, when you're trying to do a comedy in front of a crowd, it's an excellent barometer for how successful you are, both as an actor and a writer, because if they laugh, it's funny, and you win. If they don't laugh, you're doing something wrong.
Right.
And you either fix it or quit. So, you know, we were always of the school that you have to fix it. So we kept going back and back and back to material until it was always good, or we'd throw the material out and move on to something new. And like I said, that's an excellent training ground, that sort of ability to look at your own work, constantly look at your own work and adjust it, I think is necessary. So through that, eventually I realized that getting paid in pitchers of beer at late nights at nightclubs was not going to make me a star. I decided I'm going to, you know, stop doing this and get an agent and actually pursue small roles on television and things like that. I actually thought I was going to get into voice right away because I figured I had all the voices from doing all the comedy shows. Right. But the agent I picked up was like, you need to get headshots, dude. You're going to work immediately. And I thought, no, look at this. Ridiculous. It's not gonna, I'm not Brad Pitt. I'm not going to get on TV. And, of course, I did right away because they actually do want people that look like characters. And so from there, it was just a matter of attrition. I just kept at it and then keep going to the auditions and keep getting the work. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, just as a quick follow-up, I think people don't realize how many TV shows that Peter's actually been in. You probably have seen him and didn't know it, so I don't know if maybe you could just let them know where you've been.
Okay. I was Daphne's tattooed fan number 2 in Scooby-Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed. I was Agent Rosie Chuck in Agent Cody Banks at the CIA. If you've seen that, when he goes to the CIA for the first time, I'm the guy that thinks he's on the school tour and tries to kick him out and gets in trouble. And then I let him in later and get in trouble. I was on Psych. I was on Fringe. I was cut from Dark Angel for Time. I mopped the floor. You can see in my episode there's a wet floor where I used to be, which happens more than you think. I know. That's right. One day I'll sweep. Tons of stuff. Lots of stuff. I just did a TV show called Motive, a miniseries called Delete, and a movie called The Movie Out Here, which was made entirely by and for a beer company, which I think is very funny. Oh, I was recently in an independent Canadian film called Sunflower Hour, which is, very raunchy and very funny.
Before you get
I was in Stargate too, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Before you get all these roles, how do you actually get your foot in the door to get these gigs? Because you probably hear this a dime a dozen, but I'm actually getting involved with the talent agency as we speak. I'm just waiting to hear back from them.
Well, be aggressive with them. Talent agencies get a lot of submissions from people, and everybody thinks they're going to make it.
Yeah, but I have an inside source in there, too. So.
Well, great, but still, call them up and say, you know, hey, have you looked at my stuff? Have you looked at my thing? When can I meet you? When can I sign? And get on them, because that's the only way that they're going to think that you're serious. And they want to work with someone who's serious. What's that?
That's how you get your foot in the door?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hello again.
Hi again.
I know you've been in a lot of shows and you've met a lot of voice actors and
Yep.
actresses.
Yep.
Out of all of them, like, who's your favorite to hang out with after voice acting?
I have a great time hanging out with Lee Tokar. I have a great time hanging out with Trevor Duvall. We had a ball last night. Nicole and Andrea and I had a ball here in South Beach. So, you know, they're fun people, so we do hang out a lot.
I can just say that I've been, what's that? Oh, yeah. Well, we have to steal his keys more often than not. Yeah. Well, I can just say that, you know, having hung out with this guy around other voice actors, one thing I find really interesting is that, in a sense, your personalities are cartoon characters as well, because one thing I've learned is they like to just, you know, snap into voices.
Yeah, we like to make voice
just instantly. And it's almost like a challenge, I think. I mean, this is a way to test if there's a voice actor in the room, because if he starts doing that and somebody replies, then you know. Then you know, seriously, it's just like that.
Voice actor auditions, when I first started trying to break into it, actors, despite themselves, try to psych each other out at auditions. We can't help it. We just kind of do it. And the way that voice actors psych each other out is you'll walk into the room, the waiting room, and there'll be 4 or 5 people in the waiting room. And they'll all be talking like this. Everybody will be doing this. Oh, listen to me do this. Oh, well, I can do this too. Yeah. And then you walk in, and you go, oh, hello, everybody, I can do it. And then everybody switches. All of a sudden, everybody goes, oh, well, so you can do that one. Well, we'll all see if we can do this one now. Well, good. And then somebody else walks in, and you just keep switching it and switching it and switching it to test each other. And you get a measure of what everybody can do, which is interesting. And you can also tell who has more experience than who else, because you get to a point in your career where you stop. And you can see them coming in and doing all their voices and doing their practice and psyching each other out. And you just kind of sit back and go, yeah, welcome to the fold. You know, we can all do it.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Adrian Santos,
Hello, Adrian.
also known as Great Dragon AD on Twitter and
Hey, right on.
DeviantArt.
How are you?
I have a question.
Sure.
How is your visit in Miami so far?
It's great. I haven't even been here for 24 hours yet, though. So I had a ball. Like I said, we went out last night in South Beach and had a great time. Right on. It's cosplay streakers. That was fantastic. Wow, what were we talking about? So, yeah, we had a great time. We went out, and I love Art Deco architecture, so I was walking around there taking some photos, and so far it's great. I'm having a ball. But the lion's share of it's been inside this building, so this is like many other buildings.
Also, I have something for you.
Oh, you do? Come on.
This art is done by Pembroke W. Corgi. He's the moderator for the Tumblr page Ask Meanie Belle.
Okay.
So I told him about your visit here in Miami for Animate Miami, so he drew this for you.
Can we make this quick? I have a photo shoot for Hot Stallions Monthly in 30 minutes.
I'm glad I started reading that before I read it.
Yep.
That's awesome. It's a beautiful picture. Thank you so much. Look at that. Huh? Ta-da. Thank you. Hello.
Hello. What's your favorite line that you've pretty much said in any of your roles, whether it be voice acting or in an actual acting role?
Oh, wow. I have many favorites. I'm assuming aside from "yup," which is really actually one of my favorites. Oh boy. I don't really keep a catalog like that in my mind. I'll try to think of something really awesome that I said once. I've had a lot of. I played a character called Whale Boy in a comedy sketch once, and basically Whale Boy spoke like, which was really fun to do, and then was subtitled in you know. Yes, I did. I don't like her at all. See? Voice actors in the room, see? Now we can all wail. That's right. Bobbit, can you wail in German? See, he can do it. All right, next. Hi.
I'm Oriana. I just want to know, do you think Big Mac and Charlie should happen?
I think that whatever the writers have in store for us is going to be gold, and I don't know what that is yet. My hopes are ultimately irrelevant.
Poor fandom.
Sorry.
Well, and of course the fandom for a long time presumed it was going to be Fluttershy and Big Mac. And one of my favorite pieces of fan art I ever saw was it looked like a sunken, hulk of a ship, and it just had the SS Fluttermac on the side of it. Anyway, well, I have a quick question for you. One thing a lot of people forget is that Peter and a lot of the MLP voice actors actually have done a lot of anime roles as well. So I wanted to know if you could kind of detail a couple of the anime roles, because I know that you were a villain in Inuyasha. You were also, in several other programs. So maybe just a bit about that.
I've been a few villains in Inuyasha ultimately, because I'm one of those actors that in anime mostly, I was often brought in to do the villain of the day for an episode, or a couple of, I was the hair demon in an episode of Inuyasha, and the hair demon, if you'll recall, Inuyasha fans, sounds like this. So thank you, I know. And I was Chokyukai in that show, and there were sort of this whole series of animes that came through, Hikaru no Go and Star Ocean EX, and I was Ian Vashti on Gundam 00, who was basically the tech on that series that kept the Gundams working. And then I was a bunch of characters on the Powerpuff Girls one that no one likes, the one that yeah. Yeah, well, the anime one, yeah, that's the one, Powerpuff Girls Z. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that one, yeah. Yeah, it just never, people would just weren't, never caught on. Which is fine. I had fun doing it, though, so.
Well, one time when I was, actually a couple times when I've interviewed Kathy Westluck, I've asked her what was the weirdest voice she's ever had to play, and she said that it was a drain pipe. She said that it was the weirdest role. I imagine that you've had your share of weird roles, aside from, say, a hair demon. What is the weirdest role? Because it seems that you enjoy the utterances. I do. I mean, has there been a role that stuck out as just, how in the world is this getting a voice?
I'll tell you something that it was a thrill to do, and I was surprised as anything that they did it. There was a series of ads for milk, and the stack of scripts came through, and it was one of those, I don't know if you guys get them down here, where they're kind of weird. It's like a lightsaber and a there was one with like a rock and a piece of paper and a pair of scissors, and they're all like trying to duke it out in an alley, and then laser sword comes in and beats them, and it's like, and then the rock and the paper and the scissors all end up in a dumpster going, oh, must drink more milk. Right, so we had this series of ads that were all like this, and I had to go through and audition for the rock and the laser sword and the fish and the eagle and like all these other strange things. And then one of the ads was, those Russian nesting dolls? It was a family of Russian nesting dolls. Yeah, yeah. And they, it was one of the rare times where I just looked at the sides and I thought, I think it would be funny if all of the Russian dolls spoke this way. Even though they're not, they weren't casting men. They were looking for women to do Russian voices. But I thought it would be funny if we had these Russian dolls who spoke like this. And so, yeah, I got all three of them. I got all three Russian dolls. So there's this ad out there somewhere on the internet. If you look for BC Milk or something, you'll find that. Russian dolls. Well, that's how I auditioned with them. I thought it was funny if they all had the identical growly Russian voice, but and eventually one of them they put up here, and one of them was kind of in the middle, and then one was down low. But I thought that was hysterical. I couldn't believe that they went for it. Anyone? Hi? Anyone?
Well, and that kind of brings up actually another point that I've noticed with a lot of interviews I've done with the voice actors is that people who go into voice acting, and I know there are a lot of aspiring voice actors out there, I've noticed that the VAs that I've talked to say that one of the best ways to start in voice acting is to go into advertising. Would you agree with that, or do you think that there are other avenues for them to take? Because I think that's a really common question at conventions, because there are a lot of people who say have a voice they really enjoy doing and would like to see where they can take it.
Yeah, I mean, I think if a lot of us, and me included, really just wanted to get into cartoons, right? I wanted to just go and make silly voices for cartoons, and that's a tough racket to break into. And as much as you may be sitting there thinking, oh, well, I got a million voices, I can do all those voices that guy can do, and I can do more, and then you probably can, and that's true and great. But nobody knows who you are until you get out there and get some experience. You also don't, you know, you learn valuable things by putting the headphones on and standing in the booth and taking direction. And doing radio ads is a lot easier to get into than cartoons, and it's a great way to cut your teeth. And then through that, of course, people start to understand what your voice can do. They start to know you. People who can hire you start to know you. And by that, I don't mean just your face, but I mean what you're capable of. And once that happens, then yeah, you can make the transition into cartoon work fairly easily, because it's a lot of the times it's the same producers or the same people, or certainly your confidence goes up. If you've done 100 radio ads and you walk into a cartoon audition, you're like, well, I've done 100 radio ads. I can get a cartoon. You know, whereas if you walk into a cartoon audition without having done anything, it's nerve-wracking. Standing in the booth is nerve-wracking. It's one of the most difficult things I've ever done, to learn how to stand there with your headphones on and hear nothing, because you'll do your thing and then they'll talk about it behind the glass, and you sit there going, and then they just come back on and say, okay, let's just go it again. It took a long time to realize that mostly what they're talking about is, did we get that, or did you forget to press the record button? Yeah, I forgot to press the record button. Okay, well, should we get it again? Because it was pretty good, though. Yeah, it was pretty good. When do we get it? And they go again. It's got nothing to do with you. But of course, you don't know that. You take it personally. The silence is deafening.
What was your very first gig, and how did you get it?
I don't remember how I got it, actually, but it was a gig for Electronic Arts, one of the Need for Speed games. I was a police dispatcher. I don't remember how I got it, honestly. I think I got the opportunity through somebody or something, but that was my first voice gig.
Have you been in any other video games?
I've been in other video games, yeah. I've been in Warhammer, Dawn of War, and various other things, Scarface, stuff like that. Hi.
So I have a couple questions for you.
Yes.
When you see someone cosplaying your character, is it flattering or is it weird?
It's 100% flattering.
And how do you feel about in-character cosplayers? Is that a little weird, or is that still flattering?
It's also flattering, but I don't really run into it, because I think for the most part, what happens is people realize that they're standing next to me and all of a sudden go, oh, you're the guy, you know, and so the character drops. I don't really ever. Every now and then people will, you know, they'll give me their impression, or they'll try to, you know. I had a guy in Cleveland. He wanted a yup off with me. So I didn't really know what that meant, but he came to I was sitting at the autograph table, and he came to my table and said, yup. And I went, yup. And he went, yup. And I went, yup. And we just kept going, yup, 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 yup. And eventually I just said, okay, you win.
Other than that,
and he did this.
What's the weirdest thing a fan's ever said to you?
Well, you know, Andrew Francis is weird like that.
Andrew Francis is weird like that, I know. The weirdest thing a fan has ever said to me, I don't, I was in New Jersey for BronyCon last year. This is my very first convention I ever went to. I'd never been to anything. And I came out of my hotel room, and there was this kid dressed up with some Rainbow Dash stuff and whatever. I think he had a tail and one of those hats like that, right? And this T-shirt is 20% cooler, all this, like the regalia, right? And I came out of my hotel room. It was the end of the day. I didn't have I had my thing in my pocket, but so we're standing in front of the elevator together, and he looks at me like, and I go, and he goes, you don't have any idea what this is about, do you? And I said, you don't have any idea what this is about, do you? And all of a sudden he goes, and I pulled my little blue badge out. He's like, oh no, that's blue, that's blue. Showed him my name, and he flipped out. It was very funny. We rode the elevator together, and we've been pals ever since online, so.
What was your reaction when you found out what kind of fan base was going on with this show? Were you shocked or surprised? Or?
It was surprising, yeah. But it's, as I was saying earlier, it's completely excellent, and it's so flattering. Because I have done all these other anime things. I've done, a job here, a job there. Ian Vashti on 00 and all those things. And you think, okay, this is the show that's going to, bring me to places like this, and the fans are going to come out, and then you do a My Little Pony audition, and you get the job, and you do one episode, and you think, oh well, okay, My Little Pony, that's weird, okay, fine. And then all that other stuff. At the end of the recording session for Gundam 00, they had a stack of autograph requests. And they said to me as I came in, oh, Peter, you better stick around because there's going to be an autograph request for you. I have, let's see, none. Sorry, there's none for you. So you don't have to stick around. I know, right? So sad. And then My Little Pony, you just look, it was never even a consideration. You never even thought for a second that there would be a single autograph request, let alone a fandom, let alone to be, sent around the world to sit here and talk to people. And, it's just the most marvelous thing.
I have a question, what is your opinion on fan dubbing? Say when you have a person who goes one pony plus hundreds of apple trees just doesn't add up. Yeah. When you do it for a video like that.
What is the question exactly?
What is your opinion on fan dubbing, where they do your voice?
Oh, where they do my voice, yeah. I think it's flattering and fantastic. I love it. This is the single most wonderful thing about this community of fans is how much they re-involve themselves in the creation of more and more art and more literature and stories and everything. It's just tremendous. And so I think it's great. I love it. Yeah.
On the note of fan dubbing,
yeah.
I don't know if you remember, but I manage Milo Colty. One of my voice actors came to talk to you for advice, and you really inspired him. So I just wanted to thank you on his behalf.
Okay, great. Who is that?
Shim, maybe
Shim.
You know him by. He was voicing Dustshine, which is Twilight
Oh,
Sparkle.
yeah.
And you gave him some really good advice, and I just wanted to thank you on his behalf.
Oh, well, good. Tell him you're welcome on his behalf.
And my question is, what is the favorite thing you've seen at this convention so far?
I haven't actually had a chance to see too much. I walked in and they sat me behind a table, and then I came up here. So far my favorite thing is sitting right here and looking at you, talking to you guys.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. But I'm sure there's going to be gold downstairs somewhere. I just haven't had a chance to go look for it yet.
A trivia question. What would you say is your least favorite movie of all time?
My least favorite movie of all time. And you're going to write it down. Yeah. This has to be right. There was an independent film. Yeah, there's an independent film I was in called Sunflower Hour. No, what?
There was an independent film, I think it came out in about 1978, called Look, a Moose, I think it was. Oh, really? Do you remember that film?
Yeah, Look, a Moose. No, I would be happy to say, no. I'd be happy to say a film I really despised. A film well, you know what? I don't know. I don't really have a least favorite, but I'll tell you, I walked out of Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. I thought that was bad. Yeah, I didn't like it. Yeah, I know that's gonna win me friends and lose me friends. I know. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Maybe you can. I'd be willing to be convinced. I'm always willing to give things another shot. Yeah, I saw them all. It was the movie where I realized that I'm really just not the hugest fan of his movies. I've liked a couple of them, but for the most part, I think they're yeah. No offense to Kevin, you know, I admire his career, but just not a big fan of his films.
Hi.
I do.
What
for him.
roles have you auditioned for but haven't gotten?
Oh, well, they say that you get 1 out of every 25. So the list is far too long for me to possibly even begin. I got an audition for, do you remember the guard in X-Men 2 who gets ripped apart he gets metal in his veins, and he's used by Magneto he rips him apart to escape from the plastic jail. I went out for that. Didn't get it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The more I think about it, the more there'll be.
Expanding on the one from before.
Sure.
Or what was one you auditioned for, you really, really wanted, then you found out you didn't get it, and you were pissed off beyond all reason, or just sad?
I thought I did a terrific audition for a role in a movie called, I'm not going to remember the whole title. It begins with Afghan Luke. And I don't know if anyone's really going to ever hear of this movie, but I just remember doing such a good job at the audition. And I was really convinced, just absolutely convinced I was going to get it. And then I just heard nothing. And that happens a lot. It's tough, you know. You got to be ready for that. And again, you take it personally, right? To not get things.
We've got just a few more minutes, but one thing I wanted to bring up too that you started talking about. Yeah. No.
Listen, you guys.
Seriously. That coffee does wonders, doesn't it?
All right.
Anyway, one thing I wanted to bring up that I think is kind of interesting, especially because I think the majority of the people who are in this room here are bronies or know the brony phenomenon, and generally bronies come from the internet. Bronies here? Yeah. I think it's surprising for a lot of bronies that the voice actors are actually quite in tune with the memes and the online culture. I think it's interesting. Like there have been a couple of questions at this convention and others about, you know, what is your reaction to the fandom, et cetera. Bronies have been around for 2 years now, actually more than that. And it's interesting to think of it in those terms because I almost think now it's not as so much of a fresh sort of thing. Now the fandom's a little more established. Would you agree with that? And then I would then follow that up with how often do you say try to keep up to date with the memes and the internet stuffs?
I am online every day. I do like to keep up with it. I am on Twitter at @ActorPeterNew, and I am on Facebook. You'll find me. I have more followers than Lee Tokar, which Lee is the only person who cares about that. He had more than me once, and I never heard the end of it. He's trying again. He's trying again. He keeps trying. Go follow Lee Tokar, because then I could, and he can get more followers than me, and I can, I can stop hearing about it.
Actually,
go ahead.
Hi.
Hi.
I just wanted to ask if you will be watching the Brony documentary that is supposed to be coming out today.
Is it?
It's supposed to be. It's not out yet, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I figured.
That's the one they shot last year,
Mhm.
right? Yeah, I can't wait to see that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm in that too. You see the back of my head.
I'm not in the.
I'm a fan of yours too.
I didn't get to be in the promo, but I gave them an interview, so I don't know if I'm in it.
The preview.
Was I?
Yeah.
Oh, I missed it.
You're only in the preview version. They showed it.
Oh, yeah. Good. Well, there you go. I'm looking forward to it. I hope it does a lot to bring people up to speed, you know. Hey.
While voicing for My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, what is the most awkward moment while doing the job that you have occurred thus far?
The most awkward moment I've had doing the job is when you get into the studio, you have the line, yup, or actually I think this one was, no. And they actually gave me notes. Like they didn't quite like the way it came out, and we ended up doing it about 8 times. And you sit there thinking, I have one word. How can I change this to make it right? So you going back into your well and trying to figure out, okay, well, how much my motivation for my no? I'm rejecting. Then you just give up and have fun. And once you give up and have fun, then you're good.
What was your original opinion about MLP when you first went to audition for it?
Well, I auditioned for, it was episode 4 that I auditioned for, and so of course it hadn't aired yet, and I didn't know anything about it when I went to audition. So I found out, okay, well, there's a My Little Pony audition, okay. And the only thing I knew about My Little Pony was the show that was on in the 80s, which when I was watching it in the 80s, I really loathed. But that made sense because it was very girly, and I was a boy, and I saw this thing, and it wasn't the same thing that this show is, and I couldn't wait to turn it off whenever it came on. It was the one. So you get this, but you grow up and you get an audition, and it's like My Little Pony. Huh, all right, well, okay, let's go do this thing, and then once I was looking at the script pages, and it seemed really fun, and I thought, well, it could be that the only reason I hated My Little Pony when I was a kid was because I was a kid and I didn't know better, and whatever. And so you kind of look at it again and go, well, I'm a professional and I've grown up and I need to give this thing a chance. And so you start looking at it and seeing that there's a great sense of humor in it, and seeing that there are really strong characters in it, and the more I worked on it too, the more I realized that it was just a ball to do, to go to the sessions and you sit there with all the actors, stand there with all the actors, and everybody's having a great time, and the scripts are fun, and the more I did it, the more I realized I liked it. So, hi.
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 It's too tall.
I know. Move it.
Okay. Do you like Big Mac and Shirley shipping, or what do you think about that?
Look, a moose.
It's an independent.
It's an independent film from the 76, just before Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would've been big if it wasn't.
Lucas was on board for it for a while, but eventually. Sorry, I have to. I'm going to leave that line of questioning alone.
I think we got time for one last question.
Okay.
All right.
Hey, I'm going to ask a similar question to that one just now.
Then I might see another moose, but let's see what happens.
Not on the same line. Okay, here it is. Nicole got asked earlier today during her panel, like, what was the most awkward moment that she's experienced while doing the show? And she answered that it was during the episode that you worked with her, the Hearts and Hubs episode. Yeah, the whole schmoopy doo.
Yeah.
So, like, what was your take on all that? Did you find it awkward, or?
I didn't find it. What I found awkward about it was the first time really that Big Mac had said too much beyond yup and nope. Obviously, I talked about apples in the beginning, and I said AJ once, and so there was stuff, but it was the first time I'd really had to attack a huge number of lines. He was also calling things out, which the character had never done before, and I'd just become aware of this community and realized that what I was doing had an effect. And so I was really feeling a pressure to do it right. I don't mind saying schmoopy-doo and stuff like that. I get a kick out of it. It's great fun. It's part of why I like to do the job, is because I get to make hair demon noises and Russian doll voices and whatever, so saying silly stuff is part of why I do it. So that part wasn't awkward, but for me, I was just really aware that people were going to listen to it, and usually you kind of act into a vacuum most of the time, but with this show I don't. This show I'm really aware.
Quite a few lines a couple episodes later when it was the Ponyville Confidential episode where it was that?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Great.
And
Thanks.
same thing. Yeah, thank you.
Yep. Well, I think that just about does it.
Thank you. Everybody, Peter knew. a very genuine affection for the show. I think the assumption is that there's an irony in it, right? The assumption is that you like Fluttershy, but it's like, yeah, Fluttershy, haha. But it's like I really love how genuine the affection for the show is, and that is really inspiring. And so to turn that corner from to be taught that you don't have to always approach something with that sense of cynicism. You can actually approach things with honesty and this genuine quality is something I've learned from this community, which I appreciate. I sort of rambled, but is that the answer?
Hi.
Hi.
What is your favorite part about playing the character Big Macintosh on My Little Pony? And could you do some lines in his voice?
Yup. I can. My favorite, ultimately my favorite thing is the yup, is to say yup, because it's petters and pet shoppers and shoppers, and I don't know. Pet Shop Boys is the funniest, and the Pet Shop Girls too, I think is fun. So. Yeah. It lends itself very easily to the wrong sorts of things, so we'll try to steer clear of that. So basically, I just want to have a chat with you guys. So there's a microphone here. Come on up and ask a question, and then we'll talk. Hello. We met earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my question is, who's your favorite character you've ever played and why?
Who that I've ever played and why?
Yeah.
Probably Mary Frances the pig on Littlest Pet Shop. It was only in one episode, but it was a gag I really enjoyed where this pretty little pig comes in. He speaks like this. So, that was just... People have to give that show a chance. You have to tune in next week for Lights, Camera, Mongoose. That's an episode that features me quite heavily. I think that's next week's, unless I'm wrong. Do you think it was today's? Yeah, I think it's next week's. So, yeah, Mike has something to talk about.
So, okay, you know how fans of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic are called bronies? Somebody, and I forget who it was, came up with the greatest potential name for the similar demographic fandom of Pet Shop, which is Pet Shop Boys. I love it. Anybody who was born in the 80s or earlier knows what I'm talking about. So, Mike, I have a quick question for you, Peter.
Yeah.
Would you have a different name for this potential fan base that might, who knows, show up?
No, that's it, as far as I'm concerned. I think that's the funniest. I've heard,
So, for those of you who were here earlier, you already know this, but my name is Mike Bernstein. I'm also known online as Final Draft, the director of Everfree Radio, now known as Everfree Network. And it is my distinct pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Peter New.
Hello. How's it going, everybody? Cool. Is everybody here from Florida, or we have people from elsewhere? Who's from elsewhere? Everybody's from Florida. This is going to be an awesome conversation. So, what do you want to talk about? I play Big Macintosh on My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. Thank you. I play Sunil the Mongoose on Littlest Pet Shop, which some of you may have seen as well. Thank you. One of you? Okay.
Give it time.
Yeah, give it time. It's only 12 episodes in. Entertaining as all get out to do that.
Did you practice that a lot?
No, that comes naturally to me. Other than that, I adore Big Macintosh. I adore playing that character.
What was your reaction when you found out that instead of the standard demographic that expected for ponies, like 8, 10-year-old girls, you find, say, 23 to 30-year-old guys enjoying it?
Well,
what was your reaction to it?
Okay, I will take you through it. I think at first one raises an eyebrow, right? One says, "You what? That's weird," and you think there's something wrong about it or something strange about it, right?
Like denial, anger.
Right, exactly. But brief exploration of it, I started coming to these conventions. I did, started looking at bronies online, and it became really clear to me that it